Hello and happy Valentine's Day to you. Yeah, it's good to have you with us today. Uh, it's a double. I said happy Valentine's Day. I should have said happy Ash Wednesday. All of that is wrapped up. But guess what? Because of love, which is Valentine, because of love, we have Ash Wednesday. And let me say, that's what love looks like. Woo! Teach Geneva. Yeah. But let's get back to our lesson. But that's it. See, we never stop and think, oh, we can quote John 3:16, for God so loved the world. But what does love look like? Go out to Good Friday, look out on the cross. That's what loves look like. And that's why I say to you today, happy Valentine's Day, Love Day, and happy Ash Wednesday. Now, let's look at our remember your history is our lesson for today. But since I jumped off the deep end of the pool, let me first say welcome to the Louisville campus, the Hardin County campus, the Indiana campus, the E campus, and everybody that is watching. It is so good to have you with us on this day. As you know, we are in the Black History season. And since we are in Black History season, what we have been doing this month is looking at the Black National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. And then what we are doing is looking at the biblical significance of the verses of James Weldon Johnson's great poem and song. Now, James wrote the words and his brother put it to music, all right? And so today our lesson is remember your history. And simply put, we on the verse, stony the road we trod. And this series is a reminder to Black America that each, listen to me now, each generation must lift their voice. So young people today, I'm not talking about going out, breaking windows and looting and all that, but we must lift our voice, lift every voice and sing. And that means that we need to lift our voices against what's going on. When I say our neighborhood, I mean our country. Because when you look and see that one party, they can't learn. I hate stupidity. But they haven't learned that when you try to keep other people from coming in America, you have been the melting pot all these years, but now you are going to go and vote, and you are going to take somebody's job because you don't think that they doing enough to keep out other people. See, that's how we got in this situation that we in now, because you thought black people wasn't good enough. Well, we've been good enough to help you build this country? No, to build the country. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn, had died. Do you know what he just said? Before we could even have hope, our hope was put to death. Our hope was put to death. Well, and God wants us to remember this. Isaiah 46, we're reading from the Message. And I have to say this because this to me is comical. It's not a funny situation, but the way it's written is funny. I can imagine, walk with me, use your imagination, that in heaven, it's happy hour time. And all the angels are sitting at the tables and they are drinking Pepsi. Since I like Pepsi, you know, they having their Pepsi, they having their soft drink, they having, because you know you ain't getting no Jack Daniels up there. And God is entertaining them. And so he said, look here, the god Baal falls down. God Nebo slumps. The no god hunks of wood, he said, look, catch this, catch this. He said, now catch this. The no god hunks of wood are loaded on mules and have to be hauled off. Woo-hoo, wearing out the poor mules. I bet the angels fell out laughing because now they supposed to be gods. But Baal and Nebo, they have to be put on a wagon and have the poor mules pull them into captivity with the Israelites. Dead weight. Burdens who can't bear burdens. Hauled off to captivity. And they couldn't stop it. That reminds me, I don't know if I've told you this before. If I have, I'm telling it again. If you haven't heard it, then listen. I had a good friend, and she invited me to come over to her house, and this was one of those times, you know, I'm always, all my life I have been busy, running around like a busy soldier bead or something. So I went to her house, and it wasn't the first time I'd been, but it was the first time that she had added something, and I wondered if she invited me so that I could see it. What did I see? I saw the fat boy called Buddha sitting there on her something, it was a table. And I said, what the fat boy doing here? And then she told me, she said, don't talk about my God. I said, then why don't he shut my mouth? If you don't want me to talk about him, he don't want me to talk about him, then tell him I said, shut my mouth. She had, I couldn't believe it, Buddha. And she had to sit him there. I have to carry you, set you down, and then I bow down? Something wrong. So let's go back in verse 3. Listen to me, family of Jacob, everyone that's left of the family of Israel. I have been carrying you on my back from the day you were born. Woo! Thank you, Lord, for carrying me. He said, see, you carrying these idols into captivity with you, so they your gods, and then when you get there, you're going to bow down and worship them. But listen, I have been carrying you. I just didn't start. I have been carrying you on my back from the day you were born. And I'll keep on carrying you when you old. Woo, thank you, Lord, because I know I need to be carried then. I will be there, bearing you when you are old and gray. I've done it and will keep on doing it, carrying you on my back, saving you. So he says, I got a question I want to ask you. So to whom will you compare me? The incomparable. There is nobody you can compare. There is nobody, nothing that you can compare me to. Can you picture me without reducing me? You know how it is. You want to take a picture and you got to reduce the lens so you get everything in there. He said, you see, here's what has happened. You people with a lot of money hire craftsmen to make them gods. Woo! The artisan delivers the god. You get somebody to make the god, somebody else to deliver the god, and then you kneel and worship it. You carry it around in holy parades, then take it home and put it on a shelf. And you know what? And here God, the angels are getting ready to really howl on this one. And there it sits, day in and day out. A dependable God. Dependable. Always right where you put it. Say anything you want to it. It never talks back. Of course, it never does anything either. Think about this. Wrap your minds around this. This is serious business, rebels. So take it to heart. Remember your history, your long and rich history. I am God, the only God you've had or ever will have, incomparable, irreplaceable. From the very beginning, telling you what the end would be. All along, letting you in on what is going to happen. Assuring you, I'm in this for the long haul. Woo! I'll do exactly what I set out to do. Now, let's go on and get into this lesson. Part 1. We need to learn history's lesson. And when we look in history's lesson, because it starts out stony, this verse starts out stony, the road we trod. So the first thing that we need to remember is that it has not been smooth sailing. It hasn't been smooth sailing. Studying history is thus seen as an act of obedience, while neglecting it is equated with rebellion. You see, here's what we need. We need to know our history, because if we don't know our history, then we won't know our present. And this song speaks to the present. symbolizing a new day and hope for the future. Now, I admit, it looks hopeless. I just don't understand how people who are supposed to have good sense could turn around and elect a man who has no sense. There you again. See, this is what God is talking about. You put somebody on a pedestal and you expect them to carry you. He said, look here, I've been carrying you all along. And let me say to my people, God has brought us from a mighty long way. And he has promised us a new day. And yet W.E.B. Du Bois tells us that sometimes a new day can feel like dusk, more like dusk than dawn. And there is nothing that helps us like making it through the night. Sometimes we just want to just make it through the night. And see, dusk signifies night. But when it's 7 o'clock but what happens when it's 7 o'clock in the morning and it looks as dark as midnight? I do want to say this. You do understand, don't you? The nighttime can come in the daytime. And what happens is that we get disoriented. When it's dark all the time, we get disoriented. And even when it's dawn, it still feels like dusk in Black America. And this is overlooked when viewing the Black experience through the lens of the Black elite. Black elite? Did I say that? Well, what the heck is a Black elite? I'll tell you, a Black elite is those that can rub two nickels together, have a decent job, and then you leave the West End, you leave where you're from, and you go chasing to the East End, and they don't want you. And that's why I said it before, and I'll say it again, I'll keep on saying it. I salute Kevin Wayne Cosby, the pastor of this church. He could have said to St. Stephen, let's move. And they would have moved. But instead, he saw the need, listen to me now, to stay in the hood. I mean, in the poorest zip code in Kentucky, 40210. Because, well, 40210 needs a church, needs a hope. And so when he stayed here, people felt like somebody cares. We've had a lot of churches, yeah, I'm talking about you, Black churches, that have moved into big, way out there. But don't the people in the inner city need to know Christ? Of course they do. And so therefore it feels like dusk is dark in our neighborhood. You go down the street, houses are boarded up. Before I came on, I was talking to someone and I said, where we're going to eat. And this goes on every day. We start at 11 o'clock trying to decide where we're going to eat because there's no place around here to eat. And how dare folks come to the West End and put up a little chicken shack. We were the ones who fried chicken. And then you're going to come into my neighborhood and fry my chicken. Whew. It may seem like dawn. Why? Because we got a black female as vice president. But, it seemed like to me that we had a black man as president. And yet we want to think that we got some black elite people. No. So lift every voice and sing. Verse 2 explicitly referenced the past within the line of out of the gloomy past. And this is a call to remember our history, and it aligns with the message from the prophet Isaiah, who urged them, think about this, wrap your mind around this. This is serious business. Remember your history. And my black sisters and brothers, we need to remember our history. We need to tell our children our history. My mother told us our history so much until I could tell her story better than she could. And he says, stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod. Now, you know in Psalms number 23, we love that Psalms 23, and rightly so. Stony the road we trod refers to our history and the many obstacles black Americans have had to endure. See, I can remember the first time going to a desegregated school. It was frightening. I remember right at 18th and Hill, there I was going to catch a bus. I couldn't have been more than 15. And there was a drugstore, and I thought, okay, while I'm waiting on this bus, I'm gonna go in and get me a soft drink. And I went in. Stupid me sat down. And the waitress came and told me, he said, no, you can't. The counter person or you can't sit at the counter. What do you want? And I said, I like to have a Coke. I was drinking Cokes then. I didn't. And so he gave me the Coke and said, now you have to move back. So I stepped back. No, move back a little further. And I then set the Coke down, turned around. It didn't make me no difference that I paid for it. Turned around and walked out. And you see, I think we must have forgotten our history. Because otherwise we wouldn't be so surprised that, because see, we thought racism was over, but it just went undercover and it fooled us. And then all of a sudden, you get somebody like 45 comes and makes it all right to hate. God didn't say it was all right to hate. So bitter the chastening rod. The rod means you have the rod of correction and the authority. And trust me, it was used on us. But let me point out to you, in the Old Testament, there are two significant exodus that cannot be overlooked. The first exodus was led by Moses. And Moses saw the deliverance of the children of Israel from Egypt. However, there was a second exodus, which occurred when the Jews were freed from Babylon. And the second exodus was orchestrated by a man named Cyrus, really a pagan king of Persia. This was God's doing. And God called on Cyrus, the king of Persia, to defeat the Babylonians and facilitate the return of the Jews to Jerusalem, allowing them to rebuild their culture and civilization. I'm sorry. I used the wrong word there. But now, despite the prophecy, many were skeptical and had become cynical and assimilated into Babylon culture. And my sisters and brothers, I believe that's what we have done. We have become complacent. We become skeptical. We do not get along with each other. It's easier for us to leave our pants hanging half down than to pull them up. It's easier for us to have our skirts way showing our behinds. We need to remember our history. And God has told us. See, remember back at the beginning when I was saying and making fun and saying God was having comedy hour, happy hour in heaven, and he was talking about the idol gods that got moved and they set them down and they don't do anything. Well, let me just stop here and say, you know what I'm going to say because I've said it before. That's what I love about Exodus chapter 3, verse 7 and 8. Because God speaking. God is speaking. He said, I have heard, which tells me God has ears to hear when I call to him. Then he said, and I have seen, which says to me God has eyes and he can see what's going on with me. So you need to be careful, because the God I serve see what you're doing to me. And then he said, and I know, which tell me, see, God is aware of everything. So he doesn't stop there. He said, and I am come down to rescue you. But see, we have gotten so bogged down in our own little world that we as a people have forgotten God. See, out of slavery, when they went out to pick cotton, they would sing, we call them Negro spirituals, but many times those songs were nothing but signals of what was going to happen. Down by the riverside, we're going to meet down by the river later on today. You see, and all we do, instead of serving God, we try to entertain each other. Now, you may not want to hear this, but you need to learn your history lessons. Then, number two, because I said number one was learn our history lessons, number two is be inspired by history's accomplishments. See, yeah, we have accomplished some things, yet with a steady beat. Let me see, Desmond Tutu. He said the one thing we can learn from history. Listen to Desmond Tutu said the one thing we can learn from history is that we don't learn from history. The one thing we can learn from history is that we don't learn from history. That is why you keep getting back into the same old jacked up relationship. See, too many of us, we don't even want to hear our history. We don't want to hear about us being in slavery. Well, we need to hear about it. I was mortified. I think I said this last week, the week before. I was mortified when I was sitting over at Phyllis Wheatley's school, and the teacher started talking about Phyllis Wheatley and how she came to be a slave. That the slave trade, a ship came aboard, and they saw her, grabbed her, and took her, brought her here, and her parents never saw, she never saw her parents, and her parents never saw her again. And I said to myself, I was in the fourth grade, I couldn't imagine how in the world could something like that happen. How would I feel if somebody come and take me out of this school right here, right now, and I never see my mama again, or she never see me again? But that's what happened. And it's hard for us to talk about, but we can be inspired by our accomplishments, because my sisters and brothers, we have accomplished a lot in America. Now consider this, that when you visit a doctor, and the doctor's going to ask you some questions, well, how you doing, well, how you feeling, well, let me ask you about your family history. Has anybody in your family ever had cancer? Anybody have suffering from diabetes? Anybody have mental illness? Anybody? Well, look, I'm here, not my family, but you see, our ancestors' DNA and health issues can affect us. And so knowing your history is essential for optimal health. Our past shapes our present. And so we need to understand our history, which helps us to comprehend why certain things exist. See, many of us don't even know or are aware of the red line that was drawn and put in law by banks that we can't buy property in certain areas. And so the past holds valuable lessons. It's crucial to understand the struggles of the African American community, the challenges we face, and the progress we have made despite the obstacles. Okay, we have made some progress. See, because our past have been marked by challenges, from slavery to systemic injustice. And while some may argue, other immigrant groups also face hardship, the African American experience was distinct. Oh yeah, the Irish faced difficulty, but eventually they were assimilated into whiteness. In contrast, black individuals face ongoing discrimination due to the stigma of the color of their skin. And yet, let me say this, because it's getting ready to be summertime. It's heat, it's warming up a little bit now. White folk will run out there and lay out in the sun. Why? Because they want to have some color. What's with this? You hate my color, but then you want to be, and I've had some say, ooh, I'm as brown as you. No, you're not. Because see, my brown is gonna stay with me. So now let's move on to point 3 because my time is running out. Remember our duty to the past, and remember we have an obligation to the future. There is no doubt the road has been stony for African Americans. The Super Bowl, it was just last week, past Sunday. And they did the national anthem, America's national anthem, and everybody was standing there and they was just like that and all. But when they got to the black national anthem, lift every voice and sing, I never seen so much disrespect. Because I could see behind the singer up in the crowd, The people just a walking and a talking but just earlier you could hear a pin drop. Well, lift every voice and sing is more important to me than the Star Spangled Banner. So yes, the road has been stony for African Americans. Our ancestors endured the whip, the auction block, had their children ripped from their mothers. This psychological trauma was something. Dashing hope before hope could even be fully formed. Leaving entire generations hopeless. And this pain is part of our story. I know I was you remember when this movie, The Help, came out? Yeah. What was her name? Victoria Davis, I think. Yeah, I think that's what it was. The Help. And it was about black women having to catch a bus and go out to white women's house and clean up and all that. So I was asked, have you seen The Help? And I said, no. And why do I want to see The Help? Oh, you haven't? I said, I have seen The Help for years. It wasn't Victoria Davis. I hope that's her name. The woman's name was Geneva Nelson, my mother, who went out and caught the bus every day, 6 days a week, to go out to white people's houses and clean their house. I am not embarrassed by it because it was honest living. In fact, white people, they would send her home with the clothes that their daughters were tired of wearing or got some new clothes or something. And yes, my sister and I, we were happy to see them and wore them. But I didn't need anybody, we didn't need anybody to tell us about the movie. Because my sister and I, we knew the movie. And talking about remembering our past and have an obligation for the future, I remember what my mother did. And she cleaned houses so that my sister and I do not have to clean somebody's house but our own. And I realized that early. And I said I would never clean anybody's house but my own. Now, and I've gone over to some family, they've been sick and helped clean their house and what have you. But I do not clean house for a living. And my mother, by the way, who has been gone 12 years tomorrow, 15th of February, she'd be gone 12 years. But before she left out of this life, she looked back and said to us, my sister and I, God will take care of you. And I'm here today able to teach 5 classes from having my doctorate because I remember the past and I remember my obligation to the future. The road has been rough. The going has been tough. And the hills have been hard to climb. Have not our weary feet? Oh, yeah, we have. But listen to it. Listen to it. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. We had hope, and before it could even be born, confidence, expectation, it had died. But yet, and yet means yes, even then, yet with a steady beat, nothing and nobody could stop us. Have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed? We have come over a way with tears that have been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughter. See, we have shed some blood through lynching, through hatred. We've shed blood. But out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the bright gleam of the bright star is cast. And I say to you today, people, remember your history. No, they don't want to teach history in school. Not black history, American history. How can American history be taught without teaching black history? It can't. You want to talk about blood plasma and how you can do it? A black man did it. You want to talk about Washington, D.C., and 45 wants to go live in the White House? Who did it? Black people did it. Black people built Washington, D.C. So lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. And that's what we need to do. Well, I'll see you next week when our lesson will be Pearls of Prosperity. That will be the end of our series for February. Come March, we're going to talk about black history from the aspect of the black female. Woo! I'm telling you. Y'all wearing me down. But here's what I just want to say before I leave. You want to come join us here at St. Stephen. We will do you good. Or if you want to join us, email us at newstart@ssclive.org or call us 502-583-6798 and say you want to join us, and I guarantee you someone will call you back. We'll see you next week when don't forget this week, remember your history, the history of our race and your individual history. See, because our foreparents, they made it, and they wasn't out there smoking weed. Oh yeah, I know some of them had to try to get over and try not to remember, so they drank. But remember your history so that in turn you can know your present and your future. I'll see you next week. Be blessed.